What we value is in common with what ordinary people in our community value. By doing so, Lakoff suggests, we will tap into people's innate sense of empathy that is wired into our brains, but that the corporate polity seeks to rewire out of our brains. Okay, now forgive me if I haven't been critical enough. I'm going to sound pretty critical. This is maybe silly, but it's what Lakoff would talk about if he were here. The name of today's event, as listed on Facebook, is End the Privatization of Public Spaces by Corporate Town Structures. Which, yeah, it's great. But that sounds like the title of a UNC grad student's thesis. And no offense to whoever thought of it, it's a good subtitle, baby. And I know there was, and Damon Seals and I were talking about this before, and he suggested keeping public spaces public. So, a little clearer, maybe, vague and clear at the same time. So I apologize for sounding critical from the sidelines. I wasn't involved in organizing this, and I thank you for doing that. But we have to ask critical questions of ourselves. Can we convince this community that what the town leadership is doing is wrong because it contradicts the values we share with our community? Will we organize here beyond this plaza in Chapel Hill and Carrboro? Will we engage with people wherever people are at with kindness and love? We will tell our own stories. Everybody here has a story to tell in the context of Occupy, and I haven't seen that much, and I sure would like to see that. That's what we have to do whether we want to or not. Otherwise, we will fail and we will be further marginalized and our rights will further erode. I would say that most of the institutional leadership in this community, the elected leaders, wish, as the town council members and the self-appointed leaders, perhaps like groups like the Chamber of Commerce, want Occupy to go away, or at least be marginalized. The recent memo from the town manager is just one way of doing so. We can control whether Occupy is marginalized or is instead transformative for our community. But at the same time, we are burdened. We are burdened with an enormous responsibility of being community leaders, grassroots organizers here in Chapel Hill and Carrboro. And I want to conclude with 10 sets of suggestions for carrying forth our burden and to transform our community. And I fully realize that some of these suggestions are not new and that people here have been working on them for quite some time. And it's just some things that occurred to me. Some practical stuff that maybe hasn't occurred to you. I've been talking about it with other people. But I'm suggesting that each of us think of doing this as a goal, setting our own goal. What if everybody did? Number one, go to WCHL and record a 90-second commentary every month or so, each one of us. What if we flooded WCHL with requests for doing that? They would love that, and think of the message, how many people we would reach. Call into WCOM and join the discussions on its programs. Submit a column, of course, or a letter to the editor of the Chapel Hill News, the Carrboro Citizen, the Daily Toriel, at least every 6 weeks. 2, we can use petitions and sign-up sheets more creatively to create a database of, say, 5,000 people in Chapel Hill and Carrboro. And I know that there's a database, but we can expand it to support the basic mission of Occupy. I think that's doable. 3, expand our exposure via social media and public access television. 4, write the mayor and the town council members every month. 5.
Every day.
Every day. I know that sounded kind of great. Get a group of 2 or 3 people, each of us, and invite them to meet with the mayor of either Chapel Hill or Carrboro, the town council member, to talk about these things. Get a small group of people to sit down with District Attorney Jim Woodall to talk about these issues. Do the same with the police chiefs and with the sheriff. I've done this with many of these people. Such meetings would help both sides resist the dehumanizing effects of the conflicts that we're involved with. We're all brothers and sisters. And if we haven't talked to these folks, we dehumanize each other. And we end up with things like the death penalty. Right? Work with local churches, like Minister Campbell suggested, and incorporating conversations about these issues with you as a participant in Occupy during their adult ed classes on Sundays and Saturdays. 7, organize community forums on race and class in our communities and have a diverse panel. In the wake of the successful effort to repeal the anti-loitering ordinance in Carrboro, that's something that I saw as a need in Carrboro, and I intend on trying to get going in Carrboro, so a series of community forums on race and class in Carrboro. 8, take our money out of Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and whatever other Wall Street ripoff artists are holding our money, and put it into the Latino Community Credit Union, which has a branch in Carrboro. I meant to now pull out my credit union card, but it's over there, I think. Nope. In my work, we've had a lot of success with resolutions against the death penalty. We could organize ourselves to canvass local businesses and churches and community groups with resolutions calling for an independent commission, for example, or all sorts of things. You'd be surprised at how powerful and successful such an effort would be, and how many businesses would support it. And lastly, we can create an email system, a powerful email system like Democracy in Action or something, that would make it easy for people to send messages to town leaders. This will take money and coordination, but it's doable, and I volunteer to help do it. We're here because we care. There are lots of ways to take that caring out to our community. If we're going to succeed in preserving basic rights and offering our new vision for our community, we must become servant leaders, like so many of the real organizers of Occupy have been for our community. Having said that, all of that, I pledge to become more involved with Occupy. Thanks for listening. Thank you for your time.